Hi, it's really nice to meet you guys. My name is Emma Wang, and I'm a high school student in Vancouver. I know that city councils have quite a bit of an impact on what our cities look like, so I wanted to take the time today to ask you a few questions on your perspective on what you think Burnaby could look like in the next few years. So let's get started with that. I want to introduce you to introduce yourselves. We can start with Sabrina.
Hello, I'm Sabrina. I'm just kidding. I'm Morgan Nichols-Figueiredo, and this is my counterpart, Sabrina. We are with the New Burnaby Party. It's a new political party in Burnaby that we've set up, built around Richard Lee, one of the sitting councillors. It's a collaboration of three different parties we put together, the Greens, some Liberals, some Conservatives, in order to establish a catch-all party that will represent all of Burnaby. I'm a third-generation Burnaby resident, and I've been living in Burnaby my whole life, as was my father, and my grandfather's been there from before that. I've been supporting the Burnaby Green Party before and other political parties in Burnaby all along. And then this time around, it became necessary for me to step up with this group in order to bring some logic back to the city council, which has been missing, and bring Burnaby back to Burnaby, which has been missing. And that's really my motivation, is to make a true city Burnaby council instead of the provincial Burnaby council we had. And we can elaborate on that later. But first, a little bit of music before Sabrina introduces herself.
Hi, my name is Sabrina Yang. I'm running for Burnaby City Councilor. I earned my bachelor's degree in China, Beijing in 2005, moved to Canada in 2009, and I have called Burnaby home ever since. I am a mother of two. The older one is going to university in September. The younger one is going to daycare very soon. Since 2011, I have been working as a real estate agent, serving Burnaby and Greater Vancouver area, helping people from different backgrounds achieve their dream of home ownership. Through my profession and years of community advocacy, I have built strong relationship across the city and gained firsthand insight into some issues matter most to residents, including housing affordability, public safety, transportation, and community services. As an immigrant and parent, I understand the importance of creating opportunities for every family to succeed. I believe in practical, transparent, and people-focused city council that listens to residents and brings communities together. This is a motivation why I'm running for councilor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you two so much for introducing yourselves. So now we'll kind of move on to the questions. So my first one is as follows. Burnaby is a community that's full of people who are deeply passionate about the city. So what is it about the city that made you not just want to live here, but also serve as a member of its city council?
If I might step in on that, Emma, first. As I've lived my whole life in Burnaby, I've seen the changes, both positive and negative, in the last, I won't say how old I am, but I think the changes that need to be made are the ones that bring Burnaby back to the community. We have over 200 languages spoken in Burnaby. It is a cultural greeting community for the world. And everybody comes here because it's a great place. But everybody boasts about that being a great place, but nobody's doing anything about making it even better. The housing problems that we have right now, I can tell you, not that long ago, my daughter decided she was going to buy a place, and we toured many, many, many strata condos throughout Burnaby. And a lot of them, we'd go in there and see 6, 7 mattresses on the floor. You've got a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 families living in there. And that's the reality of what's going on. And I know Sabrina's in the business too. Agents get to go in and see this every day, but people don't really realize that this is the world that we're living in. And the things that have to change now with the growth that haven't been there is doing proper construction, 3-bedroom apartments, knowing that you're going to have 6 people living in there who might not even be related. That's how you bring this under control. And previous governments in Burnaby were letting the developers just go in, tear down affordable homes, and building these market condos without any way of no 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, sell them for so much money. People can't afford to live there. And so what we've got to do is design a city where people can live and afford to be there. And I'm looking at having daycares in the buildings. I could think of some great places that actually work in Burnaby and that were built in 1960, and they're still working today because they were built just simple places where people can live. They don't take a lot of money to maintain. So this is kind of the direction I think that we need to go to create a community where people can live and play. We also have to support the parks, the small businesses, because when you cram that many people into a small place where they live, the parks become their playground. That's their living room is the coffee shop down the street. So we have to support the small businesses and allow the whole city to be a place where we can live. Sabrina, I know you have ideas on this as well.
Yeah, I've been living in Burnaby for 16 years. I really love this city. I love the mountains. I love the lakes and rivers. I'm running because I believe Burnaby can do better. I've been spending many years talking with residents and families through my work and my community involvement. I hear the same concerns again and again. People want feel safe. They want taxes costs under control, and they want the city government listen to their residents. I think the council listen to residents is the most important thing. The city council should work for people who live here, not work for other parties or other agendas.
Yeah. I think that's really inspirational. You both seem very passionate about wanting to make Burnaby a very place that's a lot better. And I'm very glad that you brought up housing, and that's actually my next question. You two both work in the real estate property industry. So, how has your experience in the industry shaped your understanding of Burnaby's housing challenges? So, sort of take us into your eyes with your professional insight, and how do you personally view this housing crisis as a whole?
Well, if I might jump in just real quick, is for the last 33 years, I've been doing commercial real estate management and development. A lot of it is mixed use with residential. And when you put commercial businesses into a neighborhood, you're creating a community within the residential area. They go hand in hand. And as I was suggesting, if you're living in a neighborhood, you need to be able to walk down the street and have a grocery store, walk down the street, get your hair cut, walk down the street, go to a school. We would like to see a park within 5 minutes of everybody's house so that we can eliminate a lot of the aspects of costs of cars, obviously transportation. I'm on the transportation committee in Burnaby, and there's a lot of work that can be done with the transportation to eliminate the need for people to own a car and actually have to go far away. So the housing, I know that one of the biggest problems we've had lately, truthfully, is the provincial overreach into our community plan. Now, we expected around the SkyTrains when the stations were built that we were going to have density. That's been since the 70s. The first time I remember hearing about Metrotown and the SkyTrains going in 1986, we knew this was coming. But the idea of turning around and getting rid of the single-family housing and putting these 6 monster houses in a neighborhood, that's the kind of thing that's really making people upset. And this is actually one of the reasons why I stepped up to be a councillor, is because we do have a provincial council in Burnaby right now, and they are the farm team of the provincial government. It's just everybody knows that they're the NDP. And so they're voting always in favor of the province. And when independent Mayor Mike Hurley pushed back, as he should have, on this overreach, saying instead of 6 houses on each lot, we're going to listen to the people. We were the people. We came out, and we're going to listen to them and say 4 houses with 4 parking spots on it as opposed to no parking. And this is what the people wanted. And our existing council, with the exception of Richard Lee, voted against him and said, no, we can't go against the province, much like they've said in a lot of other ways. So that's how come the housing problem we're having with the neighborhoods, monster houses instead of some mixed use, instead of some daycares, instead of some commercial stuff supporting the area. The monster houses aren't going to help. They put a tax on our infrastructure, our sewers, our power that doesn't exist in those areas to kind of support it. So I know, Sabrina, you've got ideas on this too.
Yeah, we need more housing, but we need responsible growth. I've been talking with residents in Burnaby. I heard a lot of complaints about the multiplex. Initially, some people think maybe it's a good idea, then we'll have more house supplies. But when the design and the house is being built, a lot of neighbors complain about it looks ugly and it blocks their views and block their lights. I think residents' concern is the most important for us. If the policy is not working for residents, then we should change it. For me, I think it's better to put high rises close to SkyTrain station and put high rises in certain area instead of spread multiplex all over the city. Yeah, I every time I talk to owners in the neighborhood, I pretty much heard a lot of similar complaints. Yeah, but what's been done has already been done. A resident asked me if for this house is already been built, what can the government do anything about it? Honestly, I don't think they can do anything about those houses being built, but we can avoid more similar giant houses coming up in the community.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I've been hearing from both my parents and their friends and aunts and uncles that, yeah, the housing crisis is a really big deal currently for a lot of residents. And I think you guys do a great job of pointing out that everything should be centered around the residents and what they think. So, on sort of the side quest of that question, on affordability, many people talk a lot about affordability, but it's a very complex issue. So, what is one tangible policy that you think would do a great deal to solve that affordability problem for residents of Burnaby in the future?
One of the things we've identified is giving people something to budget for. If you can anticipate what your taxes are going to be in the next year, it gives you something to work about. So our party has decided that we would lock in at least the city budget for 0% for the first year, and then the following years match the inflation rate. So at least people have something to hang on to as opposed to what's anticipated, these 7% increases over the following years. A lot of the things has to do with simply being able to budget into the future. People want value for their money. That's what we hear. Everybody knows what's going on in the province with regards to cutting back on everything. In Burnaby, one of the biggest things, for example, that came up recently is when the provincial government took away the funding for phase 2 of our hospital. I remember my grandfather was with the Chamber of Commerce back in the 30s and into the 40s, and he was on the first group of people collecting public money, private money to build the first hospital. And so this is really near and dear to my heart. My mom worked there. I was born there. And then when they took that money away, which is our money, they didn't take their money away. They took our money away. They stopped our job. This is Burnaby. That's our future, is that hospital. So we want to build up our affordability for places to live. But if you're inviting people to come to a party, you have to be able to provide them a hospital. You have to be able to provide them some community centers, some outdoor park area. So we want to keep a budget to a point so people could say, this is how much it's going to cost me, at least with the expenses. And as far as bringing down the cost of building new places, one of the things this provincial government came up with recently was adding, because they want money, they started adding PST to consulting fees, which means if I have a building I'm building and I have to spend $100,000 on architects and consultants, they've basically just said we're 7% more on top of that to build it. So these are things where the provincial government needs somebody to push back on them. And again, it comes to the city, and you can say, well, that's the provincial issue. But the problem is we have a provincial council sitting at the Burnaby City Hall right now, and we need to turn that into a city council who will be prepared to push back on the province and say, if you want to cut money, if you want to take away or adding expenses to us and ruin our city, we're going to push back. We're not going to sit back quietly. So one of the ways that we can make it more affordable is standing up for what we have now and standing up for the changes in the future, and make sure that Burnaby is getting its due as opposed to getting nothing, which is what we get with the current council. Sabrina?
City Hall cannot solve all affordability problem, but it can control what it spends and how efficiently it's spent. I believe taxpayers deserve value for every dollar they pay. As a city councilor, when they look at the budget, I think they should ask a question: Do we really need to spend this? Can we do it more efficiently? Recent years, I heard a lot of residents complain about the property tax increase. My own duplex, for example, in the past 5 years, the average annual increase of property tax is 10.73%. That's a lot. I don't know other numbers in other residents, but over 10% increase, that's not acceptable in my view. Yeah, I think the city councils really need to spend taxpayers' money carefully. Yeah, that's what a New Party is going to do. Oh, Morgan actually mentioned our policy on the 0% tax increase in 2027, and the rest of 3 years within the term is going to be under or equal inflation rate. I think that's very helpful to reduce the tax burden on residents.
Mm-hmm.
And just adding another aspect, because we can go on all day just about money. When you go to the store to buy an apple, people don't understand that business person that runs that business, they pay the taxes, and the taxes keep going up. And those buildings under the BC Assessment Act are being valued by their highest and best use, not how they're being used. So this is the way the provincial government dictates how things are going to change. So that person who's paying all those taxes at that little building, and it's not spread out of a whole bunch of tower, they're paying a lot of money. So they have to increase the cost of everything. So that apple becomes more and more expensive until you're saying it's going to be cheaper if I get in my car and drive across town to another location where they're not paying those taxes. The convenience of getting an apple down the street is getting more and more expensive. And it's not that proprietor or the business person is charging more. They're not making any money. They're working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is all they know. And they know that all that's going to happen is they're going to be priced right out of the area and the taxes. So what we've got to do, of course, working with other cities, is change a bit of that so that the assessment would be done on not on the highest and best use, but on a current use. And a lot of the business improvement associations are pushing for this as well. And I'm a big supporter of small businesses. If we can keep their operating expenses down, then they can provide jobs for the young people. And I could tell you one of my first jobs when I was younger was a private business, right? Where you walk in there and they say, are you a good kid? And you say yes, and they hire you. Those jobs are becoming more difficult to do because the proprietors of those businesses can't hire the people anymore. So all of this stuff comes down to making it affordable in your neighborhood by helping everyone to keep the costs in check. And it's all tied together. It really is. Everything is tied together. And that's why it's a big picture. And you just have to attack it from every possible way to keep the costs down and make it affordable, give people a life in Burnaby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a very important problem I see that's rising. Okay, so the next question I have is centered around sort of the future of Burnaby and what you perceive that to be. So what do you think is Burnaby's biggest challenge or will be Burnaby's biggest challenge in the next 4 years or so?
There are a few for sure. One of the ones I want to lean on has to do with transportation. I believe if you can move people along faster, and obviously on the transportation committee, it's near and dear to me. I was not long ago, I was traveling around Vietnam and Taipei, and their system with regards to the lighting is just so much more superior. In Vietnam, you're in a city with 10 million people, and their traffic lights have got a countdown on them. If those of you have been there, so it tells you that it's going to red, it's going to be N10, 9, 8 down there. And when that goes to 1 and turns to green, all the traffic moves like a snake. Where here everybody sits around and we're just one step above a monkey with a sign saying stop and go. So if we can increase the transportation efficiency around the city, that's going to help a lot. as we grow. You've got to move people, and that's not just with the buses and the sky trains, but it's actually making it efficient for the logistics of moving supplies and food and everything else around the city. And then, of course, the second one, which is a big issue everywhere, has to do with the people who are unhoused, who have just dropped off of the housing. It's a big issue in Burnaby now. It's something that I know very well. I have a commercial strip mall, a large strip mall we built in 1989 out in Port Coquitlam, which is 120 meters away from the Gordon Avenue shelter. And it's pretty much the same one that we're going to end up over on Gilmore, 60 beds. And I know what it did to the community over there. And we are managing it for the last more than 10 years, obviously. It comes at a great cost to the shopping center in money and people and security and theft and various things that come with this. But it's got to be managed. But it comes down to money. And unfortunately, I believe the way people are trying to manage that these days, which has to change for the next few years, I feel like the province is essentially throwing a rock in the middle of a still pond saying, there's your shelter. And then they walk away and the ripples hit the shore and all this stuff is happening. And they're saying, community, deal with it yourself. So we need a bigger plan to deal with the people who are presently unhoused. And I think the last count in Burnaby, there was about 200 on the street. We can't turn a blind eye to it. We just need to have a plan. And presently what seems to happen is there's no plan. They do something, and then the community is left picking up the pieces. So in the next few years, I think bringing all of the parties together, the province, the coastal Fraser Health, wherever you are, the city, the council, they need to come up with a plan. This comes down to transparency, involving the community, and not just 100 feet around where a proposed shelter is, but I'm suggesting more like 1,000 meters is probably the catch area around any kind of a social housing area. And the community has to come together, and there has to be funding in order to deal with whatever's got to happen. So transportation and housing, clearly two big issues that have to be addressed in the next few years. Sabrina?
I think it's a combination of affordability and livability. People are feeling pressure from taxes, housing costs, and daily expenses. At the same time, they want safe neighborhood, good services, and reliable transportation. We need growth, but we need growth that works for residents. Yeah, and New Burnaby Party has policies that will try to solve these problems. And audience, feel free to log into our website, www.newburnaby.ca, to read more detailed policies.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. And Morgan, you touched a bit on transparency in your answer, and I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into that. So, New Burnaby places transparency as a core value. So, how would you help the ordinary individual understand things like city spending and funding and other important decisions like that?
I think a big part of it is always listening. It's something that we do, and go and have as many community involvement situations as possible and listen to the questions and don't discount the fact. One of the things that I know, I travel a lot. My wife loves to travel. We've been all over the world. It's something we do. And what's great is when I go and meet somebody who's just immigrated to Burnaby and I go, I've been to your country. I've been to Uganda. I was there. I've been to wherever, Fiji. And they go, oh yeah, those countries, their bylaws, their building permit applications, their rules, their health, everything, they just throw it out the window. Over there, you can literally just give a landlord $50 and tomorrow I'll be selling bagels out the front door. They don't understand here that it could take you 10 months or a year to get a license or a building permit to renovate a store into something, to build your life. So the transparency starts with the fact that you have to acknowledge that people immigrating here have no idea what our system is or how to work it. Okay. And I can also tell you that I know people that have lived here their whole lives and they decide to go into business or they want to do something or they want to build a house. They think it's easy and they have no idea either. And so there's the transparency comes down to being able to provide educational information other than, here's the thing that makes me crazy. People go, well, if you go online, it's all there, but you can't look for something unless you know what you're looking for. So the first thing is reaching out to all of the communities and saying, look, we want to tell you how to find stuff. We want to tell you how to go to a library and actually find the information. It's there. And that the transparency is opening the doors and allowing people to come in and read the information instead of hiding it. And if I want to go back to some of the failures of our existing council where their transparency, the things that make me crazy was if you go back to the very first year of the new council where they did that situation of Foreshore Park with the organic recycling plant where they wanted to tear up the park at the river and build this thing. That was all done without any transparency. It was just snuck through. They said, we'll just do this. We'll tear out the park. We'll build this thing. And it's great. And they voted on that. So that kind of thing is obviously the citizens of Burnaby, we came out, we rallied, and we squashed that down, and rightly so. And that was one of the first things that the new council did, these people. Even though they said we're going to protect parks, the first thing they did was want to do it. So there was no transparency with that. And that's wrong. There was no transparency with the Rowan Avenue childcare situation where they cut down all the trees. They put that childcare through real fast. And by the time we were trying to protect the herons and the trees, it was too late. And yet, I can tell you, I have a daycare that I'm building in, well, my tenant's building it in Burnaby. And it took about 6 months just for a renovation, 6 months to get a building permit to renovate for a much-needed daycare. And yet the city can chop down all these trees and build its own daycare in much less time because no transparency. They don't have to answer to anybody. So our transparency is basically inviting the residents in and showing them that there's information they need to know before making decisions, letting them know stuff. Yeah, that's the transparency, just being transparent. That's what the word is. Sabrina?
Yeah, I think Morgan mentioned a very important point that we're going to invite residents to come to talk to us. And we have to listen to them carefully before making any big decisions on big projects. I can tell a personal story recently because of the project 3020 Gilmore. There are some Burnaby residents donated money to purchase the FOI information. And there are about 800 pages. There are a lot of information, but it looks like 40 to 50% of the contexts were redacted. Some pages show completely black. I thought my screen has something wrong. It's completely black. How people can get information from those redacted pages, almost half, and then you cannot have fully understanding of the whole process, right? I think that's a very important part of the transparent. The government should not cover that much information, but have people pay for it. Yeah, for regular residents, I don't think it is right. Yeah.
That's a very inspiring take to have on all the bad things that are happening in our world. And now I have one final question to sort of tie things together. And it is, if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing for the ordinary average family in Burnaby, what would it be and why would you choose to change it?
I wish I had a magic wand. I have a dream, Emma, is that every resident of Burnaby has $5 of discretionary money in their pocket. And they pull that $5 out and they say, I don't know what to do with this. My rent is paid. My kids have clothes. There's food in the cupboards. Everything's paid. I've got this $5. I don't know what to do with it. And that just doesn't happen. That would be the dream. Because today, if they pull that $5 out, they're just happy to have it because they go, I'm not sure. I guess I can buy groceries. I could pay the rent. I could put the interest on my MasterCard. There's a million places they want to spend that $5. So in my dream, everybody has $5 of discretionary money in their pocket. That's my magic wand.
Wow, that's a very unique take on this. Thank you so much for that. Sabrina, what would you do if you had a magic wand?
I would say I really want to reduce the tax burden on residents. Yeah, what city can do is property tax, but I really hope that provincial and federal government can also reduce people's tax as well. Because hardworking people, they deserve to have a little bit more money for their kids' education, for their house, and for their family travel plan. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much again for taking the time to join me in this interview. And thank you for answering all of my questions. And I hope you two have a wonderful day after today.
Actually, I want to encourage voters to vote the whole New Burnaby team, because only when we have a majority seats in the city council can we turn our promises to action and turn our promises come true. And last, I need to read the statement. This video is authorized by Anthony Leong, financial agent, finance at newburnaby.ca. Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank you,
again.
Emma.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Very good.